This is Mitchell Levy, and welcome to Thought Leader Life number 62. We're having an absolutely fabulous February because Lori Ruff, the Chief Brand Officer at ALPFA, has joined us and brought in an amazing cast of people to share their wisdom and their thoughts. And Lori, I just want to thank you for the quality of the people that you brought on air for us to talk with this month.
Thank you, Mitchell. I have had a lot of people who have been very impressed with the quality of talent at ALPFA.
It's pretty amazing, which is what we're going to talk about. So I want to welcome Migdalia Diaz, the Priority Projects Manager and a Technical Product Manager at AIRINC. I did all that without making one mistake. And also a President of ALPFA Boston. Migdalia, great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And so, you know, the question that we want to focus on, given this is Thought Leader Life, and our ability as, in my words, 60% of every employee of a corporation, of an organization, needs to be thought leaders. 100% need to be engaged, something you do really well in your chapter. What is organizations, what does ALPFA or organizations like ALPFA do to help encourage thought leadership, to help Latino Americans and others grow and learn, and either, you know, at the beginning of your career or towards the end of the career when you're mentoring and giving back? How do organizations like ALPFA help?
Sure. So there's a lot of ways. So I'll share a couple of the ways that I know a lot of my board members and then I personally have benefited, and then a couple of other highlights. I think one of the ways that ALPFA provides this environment is that, you know, when I came to this board a couple years ago, I actually came with the intention of coming onto the board to have an opportunity to try out a position on that board that would allow me to try out some skills in a really safe environment before I took a promotion at work. And so I was suddenly brought in to a committee that actually organized a lot of events, and it actually gave me the opportunity to practice project management skills so that I would know whether it was really something I was up for. But even for those members that we have that don't get involved at the board level, there are a lot of opportunities around our events in terms of connecting with professionals, so that you can really get the kind of coaching and mentoring that you need, which is something that I lacked for a long time until I actually was introduced to ALPFA. The other thing I would say, and this is probably a little bit more along the lines from the board service perspective, is that coming onto an ALPFA board, whether it's a student chapter or professional chapter, you have a certain amount of responsibility that you get as part of a board member. You're really running a business, and it allows you to expand your skills and to work in ways and to think in ways about an organization, about a business that you may not have an opportunity to do in your everyday work life.
That's really cool. You know, Migdalia, I know for a fact through conversations with other presidents, you know, the spectrum for ALPFA chapters ranges from the huge chapters like Boston and New York, the largest chapters, to some really small chapters, to everything in between, and all over the United States. And I know that a lot of them come, and you've been around ALPFA for a long time, and you've developed a reputation as somebody who is willing to offer advice. And so some of those folks call you or reach out to you, and you offer them an ear, a conversation. What has that meant to you in your personal growth to be sought out as a mentor?
Yeah, it's funny. When I came into this role about a year, 5 months ago, I came in, you know, just hungry for information.
Sorry, just kidding. You said a year, 5 months ago. I said how many days? Sorry, just kidding.
I haven't counted. But I came into this role, you know, understanding a lot because I'd already been on the board, but there was so much more that I didn't understand. And also not, you know, in Boston we do have a full-time staff, which not every chapter gets. And understanding how we function with, you know, headquarters and all of that. And so not knowing any of that was tough, and I had a lot of help, which is great. So having the opportunity to work with other presidents to help them through those hurdles and just get an understanding of how things work, how things can work. But honestly, a lot of the times in those conversations, it's not those little detailed things. A lot of times when I'm speaking to these presidents, especially if they're new, they just need to be reminded that they took on this role for a reason, because it's easy to come into this role and feel immediately inundated and feel like you're not sure what you're doing and suddenly everyone's looking at you to be the leader. So a lot of times it's really just a nudge to say, you know, you have this. You know, you came into this role for a particular reason. You were inspired by something, some sort of possibility that you saw for your chapter. So here's your opportunity. It's time to stop second guessing yourself and just get out there and do it. And it's a lot of times those comments, you know, from a complete outsider, right? Because they don't know me that well. They're reaching out in hopes that I'll be able to give them some form of advice. And a lot of times it's just reminding them of why they stepped into the role in the first place. And that has meant a lot to me, because I've had a lot of people in my career that have done that. People who without cause stepped in and said, you're amazing, you can do this, we have confidence in you, and gave you that opportunity. So to have the opportunity to give that back is huge.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I mean, we talk about a lot of, you know, the value of mentoring or being mentored, but not a lot of people talk about the value of mentoring, and that's, I think, the insight that I hear you talk about is, I see that confidence in you, and when, you know, you and I worked on your LinkedIn profile, and you did a brilliant job writing it, and what really struck me through that process, I asked you how you got involved with ALPFA. And so, you know, getting involved with ALPFA, this will be your 11th convention. So all those years ago, you know, it wasn't because you had this desire to be better for yourself or whatever. Tell me that story. That's I just love this.
Sure. So it's funny. One of the things that I say, I remind my my board about a lot, is that when we talk about, because we always talk about diversity and about getting more Latinos in as many places as we can, and I always remind people that, you know, to not discriminate against, you never know who's going to provide you the opportunity, because every person in my career that has provided me an opportunity to advance has been, you know, a bald man in his mid-50s. And it's usually been a Caucasian male, and it's just how it's worked out. So I was working at PricewaterhouseCoopers in Boston. I just transferred to Boston after an assignment overseas, and I was working for a partner named Michael Colvin, whom I'm still friends with and in touch with today. He's amazing, and he called me into his office, and he was really excited. Which, you know, we work in tax, so I wasn't really sure what he was excited about. But he called me in and he said, you know, PwC is sending a bunch of employees, Latino employees, to a convention for this organization called ALPFA. I don't really know what it is, but it's for Latinos. You're Latina, you're going. And so, and so I thought, that's logical. So
And it was in Miami, right?
Right, it was in Miami. I thought, free trip to Miami. That's cool. So I said okay, and, you know, as a result, they registered me in as a member, and I went to my first convention in Miami, and it was amazing. It was amazing. I had, you know, I was born in Puerto Rico, but I grew up in Connecticut, in a town that didn't have a lot of families of color, and so there were a lot of, I felt for a long time, especially in the professional world, like an outsider. I felt like, you know, there were differences between me and my colleagues that I couldn't reconcile, and I didn't understand that those were cultural differences. And so attending that convention in Miami, it was amazing, because for the first time in my life, I had a context for my culture in my professional life. And I was surrounded by Latinos who were successful and who were going through the same things as I was. And suddenly I was engaged in these workshops where people were talking about the things that actually go through my head that I felt like nobody else could relate to. So that was my introduction to ALPFA.
That really is amazing.
Isn't that powerful? I mean, to not to have the I talk so often about the opportunity to talk to other people who understand what you're going through and the relationships. And so that one, off the cuff, hey, you're a Latina, you're going, the value that it brought PwC and then brought Migdalia and brought ALPFA to open up memberships to partners and say, get your people involved. Don't just support us, but bring us your people too, and we'll help develop them. That two-way street with our corporate partners is really part of the key of success of organizations like this, because that shared value and vision and really allowing somebody to explore who they are, which is why I love, I was excited about having Migdalia on the show as a thought leader, because she exemplifies that in the way that she conducts her business as the president of ALPFA Boston, and I imagine everywhere else in her life. Being authentic, letting people know, hey, you're not alone. The Maslow's third hierarchy of need is a sense of belonging, right, and a sense of community. And if we can fuel that need and feed it, then we can open people's minds to what else is possible. And the stuff that ALPFA has been accomplishing and other organizations like this is just beyond amazing. It's really, really cool to watch happen.
So I was curious, Migdalia, when you were talking about how ALPFA was helpful for you, the aha moment I took away was that you're using ALPFA as a place to experiment in a safe environment, the places that you want to go, right? So I love that, and you could take this question in either direction, either for you personally, where you're going to take it next, or probably something more interesting is how have you taken that philosophy back to different companies you work for, and how has the company applied that type of rational thought?
Well, I've kind of taken it back with me, right? So whether it's in the way that I work with my board, or in the way that I work at AIRINC, I love that concept of, anytime we talk about kind of what's next, there's this connotation of, I have a tendency, right, and I think a lot of people have a tendency when you're working with a team, to look around and say, all right, what are you good at? What where are your strengths? What can you help with? But there has to be almost like a buy-in, right, from whoever that person on that team is in terms of what it is that they want. And a lot of times, especially when you're dealing with people that are early on in their career, that's a big question. They have no idea. So phrasing that question around what skills do you want to learn? What are you interested in? What are you struggling with that you want to get better at? And then how do we kind of pick that apart a little bit? It becomes a very different relationship and a very different conversation when you are suddenly a person that is invested in the development of that person, and interested in what they're interested in. And I take the attitude of, sometimes we go down a particular path and you might discover that your interest is actually something that would take you out of this position, and that's okay, because I'd rather have someone in that position who is there and it makes sense. I don't want someone who's miserable in that position. So that the idea of kind of having the freedom to discover what it is you're good at, what it is you're interested in, where you want to go, even if that means that you're off my team or off my board, whatever that is, I'm happy to help you do that. Because there's always going to be somebody who's going to fill whatever need that you have. But it definitely changed the way that I manage people and I manage those relationships.
Wow.
That's great. Hey,
Yeah.
I'll add my 2 cents, Lori, and I know you got a question queued up. I sat on the board of a public company for 9 years. I was chairman when I decided to leave, and what I can tell you, listening to you talk, Migdalia, this is CEO talk. This is the types of ways you're thinking and what you're doing, and the ways you get to experiment with ALPFA as board. I mean, you were larger than life when I was told that we're interviewing you because of the reputation that came before you were it came in the door, and this is the type of stuff that will transcend for the rest of your life the types of things you do. It's great to listen to, and it seems like you used ALPFA as an organization to really step out and do more of that.
Yeah, you know what strikes me though, Migs, is that in doing that, she's exemplifying using an opportunity like this to personally develop and invest in yourself so that you're worth more to others. Yet at the same time, the value that she's bringing in the equation is indisputable. It really is. You know, Boston is one of our premier chapters, and the board. I mean, even going through restructuring and coming out of that experience happy, you know, and celebrating each other and the changes that are coming. That could have been a complete disaster, but it hasn't been, because Migdalia cares about everything she does. And she's invested personally in everything and everyone who invests themselves with her. So that whole team spirit that we talk about all the time, the whole leadership from a position versus leadership through inspiration, and all of that spectrum in between, it is really allowed to be explored. And because of that freedom, possibilities that you wouldn't have thought might be possible are happening, because everybody's got a chance to be innovative in their space. Even Paula Garcia. So we interviewed Paula Garcia a couple weeks ago on the show, and so everybody got to see her too. So again, another example of, but she was talking about how she hired a volunteer, and she said, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that because we're not paying them. And I'm like, well, yes, you are. You know, the experience and all the value that comes. But that whole sense of running a business, you know, with the size of Boston, the number of people on the board and committee, the number of members, the budget and the P&L that you're responsible for, you are running a large, small company. And translating that to board members to do the same thing and empowering them to approach their roles like that has really made significant.
Yeah, yeah, and it's I've been able to see a lot of people blossom, which has been so amazing. I was teasing Paula, actually. I keep calling her superstar and telling her to share her experience on the interview, because she's a prime example. You know, she came on to took on that position as VP of marketing, and she has such an amazing capacity for innovating in the ways that we deliver value and communicate everything that we do. And so, it's funny. At first, she was trying to learn the role as anybody does, which is a struggle, right? Trying to learn how we do business. And the moment she wrapped her head around it, she's not someone I have to worry about. She's really handles her part of the business, and it's amazing. I love seeing that. I love seeing certain people on our board have just blossomed, and I love being part of that. And I love also then seeing them pay it forward to the people on their committees. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and they're paying it forward and being recognized and tapped at a national level too. A lot of people across the country are watching not just what you're doing, but what different people are doing in your space, and that's been gratifying. Plus, as somebody who is very well vested in social media and understands it as well as I do, I use a lot of words in a very different way that people have never heard before, and they look at me like I've got 3 heads. And when I come across somebody like Paula who understands what I'm saying, we've had some really honest dialogues and open conversation around strategy and how things work, and am I thinking right? Is this going to translate well to the chapters? And some of those people have just been, half-hour phone call, an hour-long phone call once a month, and it's been golden. So even sharing that throughout the community, it's spreading. Cool. Really.
So, if I had a question for you. So if 11 years ago, when you came back from your conference and you told your mentor who sent you there, and you came back and said, I'm excited, I'm going to participate, and I know he said, hey, get involved, blah blah blah, but is there a piece of advice you would have given yourself 11 years ago that would have made you move faster, or that person who's just starting with an organization? What's that piece of advice? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think I would like to think that I would tell myself to really get more involved. Although, one of the things that I always tell our members and my board is that, whatever path you have is your own, right? So you have to always measure what's appropriate for you. I think one of the things that I don't know that I would have listened to myself if I had gone back and said, get more involved in the chapter now, because at that time my world was very much one that was full and my time was very constrained, and I don't know that I would have made the time for it. I always tell people to get involved to the extent that you can, but I also remind people that their journeys are their own. I mean, at that point in my career, I was just trying to keep my head down and learn the business and move forward as I thought that I should, and I played it safe for a really long time. And it wasn't until a couple years ago where a mentor of mine had said to me, you have to take bigger risks, you have to be willing to jump in with both feet and just take the risk, where I was finally at a point where I could let it go. And jumping into this position was my first risk, right? Jumping in with both feet, having no idea what I was doing, and it paid off. But yeah, I would advise people to get involved in whatever way that they can, and also be forgiving of themselves, because you have to constantly be really aware of what you're able to take on, and sometimes you'll be able to take it on and sometimes you won't, but do what you can.
Migdalia, I spoke about authenticity and your willingness to share how you really feel or think or concerns you have, or having a bad day, or having some doubts and stuff. What's the risk in doing that?
In being authentic?
Well, in sharing with people, vulnerability, I guess. What has it ever cost you more than you were willing to pay?
Yeah, absolutely. It has. And that's always the risk. Here's the thing is, when you have a willingness to be that vulnerable, there's always the risk that people are going to judge, or they're going to do whatever it is that they need to do to make themselves feel better at the end of the day, and that might be a kindness to you or not. So what I have reconciled for myself is that, as long as I do everything I can with as much honesty and integrity as I can, then I have to be able to, I'm just going to sleep well at night. And life is a lesson. There are times where, especially as you're getting to know people that you're working with, you don't know how quickly or you can really be straight with them, or if you have to pull back. And there are times almost on a daily basis where I'll say, shouldn't have said that. I should pull back next time. And it's just, you just have to take it as a lesson. You never know if you don't try. So, I lead with good intentions, and I try to be as authentic as I can and manage that. And you're going to make mistakes, so you just have to be forgiving of yourself, and and then just take the next step forward.
Nice. Has there been any exterior shift that you've seen, like for example, where the service at ALPFA has impacted the family life of any of the board members, or you've seen them treat their children differently, or approach argument with their spouse differently, or things like that? Have you seen development in a personal sense expand out past their involvement at work and at ALPFA?
Yes, actually. I had a board member who I always felt like, and granted, I do not have a front row seat as to her relationship with her family or spouse or whoever, but based on the way that she seemed to refer to herself in our conversations, I felt like it's somewhere in her family or in her spousal relationship, I don't know, but somewhere there's somebody who's holding her down a little bit. And there was a point about a year ago where I noticed that she started to say, screw it, I'm going to do it anyway. and starting to see that confidence grow. It's really funny because she would thank me, and I'd say, I don't know for what, and she was inspired by whatever, either by my behavior or whatever it was. It was enough to inspire her to make a change, which is a huge privilege, right? I mean, I'm just trying to do the best that I can on a day-to-day basis, as I think, I honestly believe most people are. So to have that feedback is amazing. But yeah, I mean, that's just one example, and that is a truly profound experience, to think that you could have an impact on someone's personal life and their confidence, which is huge, because I know a lot of people struggle with it.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Leading by example, CEO.
Exactly. Well, I was chatting before we went live that Migdalia had a personal impact on me. You know, that you come into a new position, and you've got all these things going on in your life, and on the road a lot, and all of these things happening. You've got to handle everything that's put in front of you without really recognizing what's urgent versus what's important. And I chose to be more deliberate this year as I entered into the 2015 year, because of conversations we had in your car when you were taking me around Boston when I would visit and stuff and come up. And frankly, I think I have a deep fondness for you and for Boston, with just the way you accepted me with open arms and said, "Hey, stay with me." You know, it's great, and that willingness to approach. So you're leading by example is rubbing off on other people. So it's cool to hear that it's translating to their personal lives too. The professional development that continues to share the love in other places. What question would you ask if you were to look at yourself 15 years in the future? What would you ask your future self?
What would I ask my future self? I think I would want to know, where do I need to take more risks, right? Because I always have that inclination of playing it safe, and it's, at the moment it's still very much a conversation in my head of just, all right, cut it out. And I guess, I want a little bit more insight into, all right, where can I be a little bit riskier in what I'm doing? Because I think sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. A lot of times, hindsight is 20/20.
Right. Yeah. So what would have been different if I had made that choice, kind of a thing?
Yeah.
That's great insight. I just want to take a second. I want to thank our sponsor, thank AHA, for making these interviews available. The month of February has been fabulous, with the opportunity to have Lori Ruff and the folks from ALPFA give us incredible insight to thought leadership and nonprofit organizations, and helping communities, in this particular case, the Latino American, helping an ethnic community really grow and blossom and do a whole lot more. And what we do is authentic conversations like this one, and we do it over YouTube. And so you can create thought leadership interviews very similar to this, where you have YouTube interviews that go on YouTube and SlideShare and stripped off into audio, as well as podcast. And you'll see quotes coming from this interview, which will be bundled into an AHA Amplifier book. And that's the other thing. And Lori has participated and written a number of AHA Amplifier books that are also available, that can help extend and amplify messages on social media. And it's been great to partner with Lori and ALPFA for this month. It's been absolutely fabulous. So thank you very much, Lori. And Migdalia, thank you so much for being here today. If there was a particular question or comment that you think we should have asked you, we did cover a lot of stuff, but if there's something that you think we should have asked you, what should it be?
I think, and this is something that actually recently came up in conversation, it would be, what is really thought leadership, right? Because I've had this conversation a lot over the past year, and I think there is a tendency in the conversations I've had anyway to associate thought leadership with this idea of innovation, innovative thought. And what I've learned in my time as president is that, you know, my perception of thought leadership, right, the result of having thought leadership is being able to deliver on the value that we want to give our stakeholders. So thought leadership to me is anything that you have to do from a tactical or a strategic perspective in order to create the environment to drive that innovation, because innovation comes in ways that you cannot anticipate. So I think it's really almost like creating that culture in the organization.
Okay, that was an absolutely beautiful answer. So thank you.
Perfect for the topic. Yeah. Well, Mitchell, I hope your listeners will be interested in ALPFA, the Association of Latino Professionals for America. Whether or not you're Latino, come in and join and engage with us on LinkedIn at joinalpha.org and see what it's all about. Mitchell's in there. I like having your content available, which is very much, it's about Latino leadership. And this first quarter, our editorial calendar is all based around Latino empowerment. So amplifying and solidifying, giving ear to the Latino voice in particular. And so I'm really excited about having the opportunity to partner with you in this effort and to be exposed to your audience and expose you to ours, and to have all this great content come out of it with the video, the audio, the blog posts, the articles, the amplified quotes, and everything. It's going to be just an incredible asset for ALPFA for a long time to come. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, that's fantastic. Thank you. And for those that are inspired by Migdalia, if you're living in the Boston area, obviously you should join the Boston chapter. But Lori, if they're not, what's the best way to find out more about ALPFA?
ALPFA.org will take you to our website. And again, joinalpha.org takes you to our LinkedIn group that you can join and engage with the community and find out who's there across the nation. So no matter where you are, people from everywhere. We've got one official LinkedIn group now. So all of us can share and network and connect together. There are subgroups for Women of ALPFA, and I'm launching the student subgroup next month in March. And you know, ALPFA.org has all of the various assets and initiatives and programs and places and things going on. So visit us. And if you really are not sure what to do next, reach out to me, Lori Ruff. I'm easy to find, as you know. Mitchell, I'm pretty easy to find. Reach out to me anywhere on LinkedIn or via ALPFA. And I'll be happy to cover you.
Oh, I know this doesn't last forever, but you know, it's same sort of thing. People go, "How do you reach you?" Well, you know, just go and type Lori Ruff in Google, and you'll be everywhere. For me, type Mitchell Levy in Google, and you'll be everywhere. And so, and we want Migdalia Diaz to be. You type in Google, and you see you everywhere. I had high expectations for this interview, and you have far exceeded them. So thank you very much, Migdalia. It was fantastic to have you. And Lori, thanks again for this. Guys, thank you very much. Looking forward to the next episode of Thought Leader Life. And have yourself a great day. Bye now.